So today's webinar is on optimizing the MySchedule module. We will focus this webinar on both the existing functionalities that are in the system and currently available for you. And we will also look at some additional functionalities that will be released in the next couple of days for you. This webinar is allocated for about an hour and a half. We have 4 major objectives to review today. One, what we refer to as effortless scheduling, will be the simple scheduling model for building block, shift, clinic, and call schedules. I say simple because that's exactly the objective there. We're trying to give you a simple way to build your schedules. We'll talk about advanced tools such as rule-based scheduling and trainee lottery system, which allows your residents to pick their preferences. Both of those are functionalities that I will share with you, and they'll be available to you starting next week. And we're also going to look at how you can balance your service requirements. This is also another advanced feature which allows you to set minimum service requirements in terms of the number of trainees that are needed for each rotation, so that the scheduling system will, in the automatic scheduling process, will assign the correct number of people to each rotation based on what those specific needs are. In thinking about the schedule management process in MyValuations, you should always keep in mind that MySchedule is our standalone scheduling tool that's meant as a solution for easy schedule management. MySchedule is not meant to be as a direct competitor to third-party scheduling tools that are designed specifically for schedule building and schedule management. And here I have a few of them listed, such as MION, QGenda, and Momentum. These companies are standalone scheduling tools. They cost a considerable amount of money. MION is approximately $450 a year. QGenda is approximately $300 per trainee per year. Lightning Bolt, similar. Momentum, similar pricing as QGenda as well. These are full service scheduling tools and companies where they provide more of a concierge type service to you. So we are not trying to compete with those tools. So as a result, it's very important that you're aware that you can either integrate those third-party scheduling tools within MyValuations. There's no additional cost for you to do that. As long as you have acquired a license from MION or QGenda, Momentum, Lightning Bolt, Tangier, whichever company, you're able to integrate those schedules into MyValuations at no additional cost from MyValuations. Again, as long as you have a license with them. We do offer licensing options for MION directly through MyValuations. The pricing for you is exactly the same. You also have the option of integrating MySchedule along with third-party schedules. In MyValuations, in your individual program, you can actually integrate up to 15 different schedules simultaneously. That idea being, let's say you're a large internal medicine program and you have schedules from cardiology, pulmonary medicine, rheumatology, all these different fellowship programs. You can have all their schedules simultaneously integrated with you. This is true whether you're using the MySchedule module or whether you're using the third-party schedule. So that's a really important part of the entire schedule management process in MyValuations. I want you all to be familiar with. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to client services. When you log into MyValuations, click on the menu My Help, and from My Help you have access to client services. You can ask questions there. You also can click on the menu My Chat, and from My Chat, which both of those are on the top right-hand corner of your screen when you log into MyValuations, you can chat with any one of us to ask us specific questions about that integration as well. So in terms of managing your schedules, you can integrate third-party schedules along with my evaluations. You can connect with 15 different schedules simultaneously. And what's really great, all of those scheduled events, whether they're from third-party or through MySchedule, all of that will be displayed on one unified scheduling page that's available to your trainees and faculty. That will unify everything, their conferences, their clinics, their calls, their shifts, their rotations. All of that is displayed on one unified schedule for easy access. So with MySchedule, it's really what I like to call a one-stop shop for scheduling. You're able to do all your various schedules, whether it's rotations, blocks, shifts, clinics, and call scheduling. All the conference schedules that you create are all automatically overlaid on top of this. So you'll use the MySchedule module for your rotation, shifts, clinics, and calls. Your conferences, however, are scheduled through the conference management module. The conference management module is different. It's tied into scholarly activities. It's also tied into ACGME reporting. So all of that is accessible from the menu option clinical hours under the conference tracking module. So what we're going to learn today is for these 4 different options, rotations, shifts, clinics, and calls, each one of those schedules is created separately. You don't create everything at the same time. Typically, you would create your rotation blocks. Then you can create shift assignments if your program uses shifts, such as emergency medicine. Then you have the option of creating clinic schedules, and you have the option of creating call schedules. And all of that is overlaid on a unified schedule, which is available on the menu option MySchedule. It's also available on login on the home page as a simple review of all the scheduled items. This is what a unified schedule looks like in my evaluations. So here I have an example of the schedule that has 1,235 users on it. I can see that on the top right-hand side. This is in an edit mode. I'm looking at this. The view mode is similar. For example, here you can see I can hover over the conference icon, and it's going to show me the conferences that I have scheduled for that month. So as a viewer, as a user, as a resident, as a faculty, as staff, you're able to do this. This is available to everyone. If I hover over the icon for shifts, I can see all the shifts that are scheduled for me for that particular month. If I hover over the call icon, which is something between a crescent of a moon or a solar eclipse, depending on how you want to look at it, that's going to show you all the calls you have scheduled for that particular rotation block. And if I hover over the clinics, it will show all the clinics that are scheduled for me. You can see each clinic is listed individually in separate columns, and then the days that I'm assigned to those clinics are listed for me individually. So it's a really straightforward way for users to be able to view their schedules. A similar schedule view is available on the mobile app. It has obviously it has a different architecture and a different look, but that functionality is also available on the mobile app. So how do you get started with this process? Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to enable MySchedule. Not all of you will have MySchedule enabled as your default scheduling tool. So here, what I've done is I'm on the menu option setup, and I scroll down to the connectivity section. And under connectivity section for the scheduling tool, I have MySchedule selected. Now, all of you, whether you're using a third-party scheduling tool or not, all of you do have the MySchedule application available to you. If you go to your menu option for clinical hours On the left-hand side, you will see the MySchedule module available. If by some chance that MySchedule module is not available, it's most likely because your GME has requested for the service to be disabled within your program. You can always submit a request to us directly and ask us to enable it for you. There is zero additional cost to you to have the MySchedule module enabled for you, zero cost. So you can just request for us to have it enabled. When you go under connectivity and you select MySchedule here, what you're doing is you're asking the system to use MySchedule as your default service. So the difference here is MySchedule doesn't become your secondary schedule, it becomes your primary schedule. So before you select MySchedule as your primary schedule, you want to make sure everything is set up. You want to make sure your schedules look the way they do. They will have been posted, which we're going to review all of that during this webinar. And you want to then disconnect the third-party scheduling tool. And you disconnect the third-party scheduling tool that you may be already using by removing all the access information. So if it's MION, you remove the passwords. That's very important. If you don't remove this, the secondary or the previous primary schedule, you're going to have double data in the system, and that's going to be problematic for you. So you want to disconnect the old system, and you want to then connect MySchedule, scroll down to the bottom and click update, and that makes MySchedule your default schedule. And what that means in a nutshell, when I say MySchedule is your default schedule, is here at the very top, the menu item says MySchedule. That's now my default schedule. So under the menu option setup, if I scroll down here to connectivity, if I remove this connectivity here, and I change this to MION, for example, we're going to wait for the page to refresh. So what I just did is I changed the default scheduling service from MySchedule to MION. So all I'm doing now is I'm waiting for the system to recalibrate itself and say, oh, so now you don't want to use MySchedule, you want to use MION. Okay, and it's going through that process, setting all that up. Once the page refreshes, the menu item up here, instead of saying MySchedule, will then say MION. Or I'm sorry, it'll say on call. So then when I click on this, I see my on-call schedule, and my on-call data from MION is integrated into my evaluations, and that's a whole separate process. So once you have your schedule set up, you're gonna go under connectivity. You're going to remove that password from there, and you're gonna change to MySchedule, scroll to the bottom, and click update, and that's going to update everything. And once the page is refreshed, we're going to switch from the on-call menu to the MySchedule menu up here. So again, you could start working on your schedules and building your schedules, and you don't have to set MySchedule as your default schedule until that's all ready to go and you're all set. So let's get into the configuration and talk about that in more detail in terms of what do you have to do. So let's talk about first-time configuration. That means it's your first time, you've never set up MySchedule before, and you're brand new to my evaluations. You've never set anything else up ever before. So the first-time configuration requires you to do simply two things. Set up your rotations and set up your rotation block dates. That's it. There are additional things that you can do, but they're not required for you to build a schedule. You can configure your sites. This would be all your affiliation agreements. So if you have residents rotating at other sites, you will set up those sites because rotations can be site specific. You can set up your shifts, you can set up clinics, you can set up calls. All of that all of those options are setups you have to do only if they are needed. If you don't need them, you can ignore it. I want you to focus just on setting up your rotations and your rotation block dates. Now, having said that, during this webinar, because the webinar is falling on a transition period where we are shifting from some older designs to some newer designs in my evaluations, you're going to see two sets of screens that I'm going to share with you. So from this point forward, you're going to see two ways of managing. You're going to see what's available there right now, and you're going to see what's going to be available to you in just a few days. What we're talking about a few days is literally in the next 3 or 4 days will be available to you. So I'm going to start off by showing you what the new functionalities will be in terms of managing rotations, block dates, sites, shifts, clinics, and calls. But let's first start with what our current menu option looks like, just so that we can all be on the same page. So when you log into the system and you go to the menu option clinical hours, the clinical hours module, and I'm just zooming in on these menus so that you can see things more clearly. The clinical hours module has 3 main sections to it. It has the MySchedule module, it has clinical hours module, and it has the conference tracking module. Now, from your particular perspective, if you don't have MySchedule module listed, as I mentioned before, that has been disabled as a request from your GME. There's a 0 cost to you. Just reach out to client services and we can have that activated for you right away. So our focus right now is I want you to see what's available to you right now. Under MySchedule, when I go to settings, you'll notice here that I can manage my rotation names. I can manage my clinic names, my call names, my shift names, my sites. There's an option for managing campus locations. 99.999% of you will never, ever manage campus locations. All of you have a single campus. Do not confuse campus locations with sites. Your sites have to do with affiliation agreements. Campus locations are a completely different concept. And you have your setup clinical hour rotation blocks. And by the way, for all of you who are using third-party scheduling tools and you want to start using MySchedule, you can also use the manual schedule importing, or for those of you using MION, QGenda, and Lightning Bolt, you'll see a schedule importing tool, not a manual scheduling importing tool, but you'll see schedule importing tool that actually allows you to import your schedules from that third party directly into My Evaluations. So you don't actually have to build your schedule from scratch. If you already have it in the third party tool, you can just simply import it right into MySchedule and move forward from there. And it's really, really super easy. And should you have any complications or questions about that, you can also reach out to us outside this webinar for further review. Now, how is this different from the new functionality you're going to have from next week? So here, I'm going to show you what the new functionality is going to look like, not the old settings, but we're going to look at settings here just to become more familiar with it. And give me one quick second. I just want to make one change to our display configuration here. My apologies. Great, I appreciate it. We go to settings here. So I'm gonna bring my screen down to 100% view. So this is 100% view on what I can see on my screen. And I don't expect you to be able to read the text because I understand it's small, but I want to just give you a quick view of the landscape of what I see here. All these different functionalities that you are seeing here in the current system have all been brought on one unified screen. That means I have my rotations, my shifts, my clinics, my calls, my block dates, my sites, my schedule templates, my user allocation templates. These are new functionalities for schedule templates and user allocation templates. These are the two functionalities that I mentioned earlier will be out later on next week. Configuring what my cohorts are and campuses are. These are two things that I don't think you'll use. I'm going to go through all of this in more detail with you. But the idea is that you have a very unified space to look at everything. Instead of you having to go through different menu items, oh, I want to go manage my rotation names. And okay, I have these rotation names. And by the way, all of you starting for the first time in my evaluations, you will see default rotation names listed. We do that on purpose so that you're not starting with a blank slate. Feel free to delete or edit any of those existing rotation names and add your own rotation names. So you can either click on edit to change them. This is the current view that you have, or you can delete them and simply add all your own rotation names. Absolutely not a problem. So with the new module, we have a completely different view. So I'm going to take some time to go through the current module with you because I feel that the current module is going to be very straightforward. I want to manage my rotations, clinics, calls. All of this is available for you, and it's very straightforward in terms of managing it. I want to focus on the new module with you because the functionality of what you're going to do is the same. So if I want to edit a rotation name, it's the same idea, but I want you to understand what the benefits of the new module are so that you can utilize this starting next week and understand it correctly. So I'm going to zoom in now. Please understand as I zoom in on the page, things are a bit more compressed together, but I'm zooming in so that you could read things more easily from your state. So we're looking at the new module. In the new module, we can see all of our various settings are listed at the top, and we have our active items and our inactive items. One concept that we are adding into our new design is we are abandoning some of the old terminology we use, such as delete and undelete. We're also abandoning terminology such as active and inactive. Archive and unarchive in terms of rotation names. So in the current model, when we go to manage rotation names, we have the ability to delete. We have the ability to go to the bottom and restore deleted rotations. We also have the ability of saying, well, I just want to make this rotation inactive. That functionality is changing in the sense that now I can also make things active and inactive, and I can restore them as well. We're just abandoning some of the other older terminology that we're reusing. So let's now move forward and look at these individual functionalities on the screen first, and then I'll come back and show you exactly how to utilize them. Again, please remember, although this particular screen is not available to you until Monday, you still do have the ability to do everything that I'm showing you. Under the schedule settings, you can manage your rotations, shifts, clinics, calls, blocks. All of that is still available to you. So at the very top, as I mentioned, you have all these various sections that you're going to manage. I don't want you to utilize the campuses component. That's something that people futz around with, and they're not understanding that it's different from the managing the sites and affiliation agreements. So please leave that item alone. So let's look at what rotations we have under rotations. So under rotations, we can add our rotations by simply clicking on the add rotation option. Looking at that in real life, if I want to add a rotation, I simply click on add a rotation. So you can see a lot of the things we've done to help simplify and understanding. Why do we have an academic year? Well, maybe I want to add a rotation name that's only active from next academic year. Otherwise, I can leave it as the current academic year. It will automatically be available next academic year as well. I type in the name of that rotation. So this could be the Happy Days rotation. I'm going to hit the Tab key on my keyboard. It automatically copies over the name of that rotation as the abbreviated name. The abbreviated name is limited to 20 characters. The full name is not abbreviated. We provide that abbreviation for areas like the mobile app and some compressed screens for us to be able to limit and display our abbreviated name. And what campus is this associated with? As I mentioned, campus should not be confused with sites. All of you will have a single campus. You will never change this option. And I said that's 99.99% of you will not have multiple campuses. And you'll leave that option alone. And then this particular rotation, what sites and affiliation agreements are tied to this particular rotation. So if you don't have all your sites listed, that's where you're going to go under the Manage Sites section to add individual affiliation agreements. When you're adding sites, you'll be prompted for what the agreement is, when the agreement starts, when the agreement expires. We do all of that so that when you're building a schedule, if inadvertently you're scheduling a rotation at a site that has an expired affiliation agreement, the schedule module will tell you that that affiliation agreement has expired so that you can get that corrected promptly. That's one of those things that seems to slip the mind sometimes, and you're sending residents to a site that you do not have an affiliation agreement with, and that can be problematic. So if this Happy Days rotation happens to be associated with County Hospital and Hope Medical Center, you would select that and move forward from there. Now let's see what other options I can do. If that's all I want to do is just add my rotation, great. I add my rotation, I click Save, done. I have the option of linking this rotation with other departments. So for those of you that are a standalone residency, the linking option is not relevant. But if you are a residency that has rotators that come in, you can link this rotation to additional departments. By linking them to additional departments, those departments would see this rotation name and can add that rotation to the schedule. The idea there, and this is something that you currently, all of this is current functionality, it's just a different interface that you have. That idea allows those other departments to schedule their residents who are rotating with you with the appropriate rotation so that you can see rotators within your schedule. There's actually a separate cohort the system automatically sets up called rotators. And it will show you those rotators so that you're aware of them. If you don't have that, not a problem. You don't have to select anything. Now down here, you have the ability to set up activities. So currently, if we look at our add rotation option, in our add rotation, where we select our campus, we put in the rotation name, we type in the abbreviated name, and then we select the link departments and which link departments it's associated with. So that functionality is all there. What we have provided you additionally in the new module is to be able to set up the default clinical hour activities that are associated with each rotation. Currently, you can still do that. You just have to do that in a different place. Currently, after you set up the rotation, you have to go to the clinical hours module. You have to go under the clinical hour settings module. And specifically, you have to go in under link rotations and clinical hours. You have to select that rotation name. And for that rotation name, you have to set the default clinical hour activities. The duty hours what the default expected duty hours are. All we've done in the new interface is we've provided that option for you directly within the rotation, so that when you're setting up the rotation, you can say, aha, this rotation, the Happy Day rotation, is actually a patient care inpatient service. These are all your duty hour activity types. PGY 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s all rotate in this Happy Days rotation. The rotation is, sorry, I should unselect 5. The rotation happens Monday through Friday. So, or I can say it happens Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Obviously, I can change that. And the typical activity starts from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5:30 in the afternoon. And if it happens to be an activity that goes on 24 hours until the next day, I can select the option for end next day as well. And I can save that and add that activity information in here directly. So again, these are part of the integrations that we're doing with our new design and new interface. So it's a bit more intuitive for you, and you don't have to go in different places to find the same information. By you setting up this default activity, the benefit is whenever a resident is rotating through this Happy Days rotation, the system will automatically populate those default activities for the resident. The resident can see those default activities, the resident can adjust them and then save them. It's not automatically submitting their duty hours, it's only building a default template showing the resident what the expected work hours should be. This should be from 8 a.m. to 5:30. Oh, you came at 7. They can just adjust it and save it that way. Next week, we have another webinar where we're talking about the MyQuickPass module and how you can use the MyQuickPass module to automate your clinical hour, duty hour entries, where it uses geolocation to identify when the resident comes into the hospital or leaves a clinical site to automate the whole duty hour process. That ties in very well into this process as well. And I encourage you to participate with that webinar for next week as well. So once I do that, I can click on save, and that adds that Happy Day rotation here into my list. I can see that this page is showing me 10 entries. I can say, well, show me all my entries, and I can see all the entries, including my Happy Day rotation. And I can now expand that. I can see any activities or details that are associated with it as well. The other nice thing about the new interface, it's telling you whether these rotations are actually being used on the schedule. So there's a check mark. Is this rotation being used on an external schedule? Does this rotation have duty hour activities associated with it? Does this rotation have curriculum associated with it? Does this rotation have evaluations associated with it? So if you've set up the curriculum, then the system will automatically send a curriculum notification to the resident 2 days before they start the rotation. If you have evaluations, then the system will automatically assign those evaluations for the rotation. So now you can see everything has been brought into a unified view for you, allowing you to see everything about the rotation in one place. And on the right-hand side, if I want to make a change, I'm able to go in and make the necessary changes to my rotations by adding missing elements of whatever I might have missing. I can add those missing elements into there. So if I have, if I need to go in and link evaluations to the rotations, or if I need to go in and, sorry, if I need to go in and link curriculum or link evaluations, I can go in directly and do that. So for example, if you click on edit curriculum, it's going to take you into the curriculum module. You can then access this, any one of the rotations, including that Happy Day rotation that we just added into the system. And you could upload the various components of your curriculum. At the very bottom is where you can upload documents. So if you have a standalone Word document or a PDF or multiple documents and reading material for the rotation, you can simply click on Add Curriculum and Reading Materials and upload those directly into the system. These other components allow you to set up learning assignments, quizzes, patient log requirements, procedure requirements, and EPAs that can be tied to a rotation. So those are just additional functionalities that you can have on top of it. If you're finding that you need to link your evaluations for anesthesiology, then you select the option for link evaluations. Waiting for the system to think. Sometimes it's overthinking. Okay, well, I'm gonna skip that since it's a little bit overthinking on that. Oh, it just came up. Sorry about that. Again, I can pick any of my rotations, and I can select the evaluations that I want to set up for that rotation. So whatever those specific rotation requirements are for evaluations to be automatically assigned, I can then specify those as well. So that's the easy process of your rotation management. Again, everything that I showed you functionally, you're able to do under the current settings. In the new interface that I'm showing you today, you're just able to do, you're able to see more and be aware of more functionality in one place. So as I mentioned, this is part of our initial setup. Set up your rotations, and then part 2, you're going to go in and set up your block dates. So you select your block date options, and you can configure your block dates from here. Now let's again do a comparison in the current system. Well, how do I do that since I don't have the interface that you're showing me, David? Well, under the current system, if I go under the manage settings, we have set up clinical hour rotation blocks. And under the blocks here, I'm able to set up my calendar block and my PGY 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever is appropriate for your training program. So by default, you're going to find a 12 block setup that's by calendar. That means it's going to go from July 1 till July 31st. So it'll be a month by month calendar. You'll notice that you have a calendar option here, and then you have PGY specific options. Now, when we compare this to the current system, compare the current system to the new system, it's exactly the same functionality. It's just a new interface with a new look to it. It's not any new functionalities there for you. So let's look at what you currently have available and what you'll set up. So first and foremost, you always want to set up your calendar block. The calendar block dates will be that it's the default block dates of when rotations are occurring. If your trainees, your 1s, 2s, and 3s, have different start and end dates for each rotation block, you will set those up individually after you set up the calendar block. So let's say we're working on something for the next academic year. We'll select the next academic year. We'll select the calendar option. And then the next option here is the number of blocks. How many blocks do we want? Are we on a 13 block system? You have the option of going up to 60 blocks. So if you like to create your block schedules based on weekly schedules, you can do that. If you want to create based on 2-week blocks, 3-week blocks, 4-week blocks, 4+2, which are 6-week blocks, that's all up to you. You select the total number of blocks that you want, and then you'll be presented with date ranges here, which you'll go in and customize the start and end date of those blocks, and then click update values here at the bottom. We've provided 2 configuration templates that represent the most common block configurations. If you click on 12 blocks, then the system will automatically reset the calendar to a 12 block cycle. This is the default view you would normally see. If you select the 13 blocks, it'll then give you 13 blocks, and you can go through and configure that accordingly. After you've set up your calendar block, you'll then can set up PGY specific blocks. Whatever the calendar block is, the system will apply those block dates to all the PGY levels by default. Then you can go in and customize each one of those PGY levels to match the block date ranges that you want. When you're building a schedule, if you build a schedule for a specific PGY level, the system will use the PGY specific calendar block. However, if you select all your residents, so you select 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, the system will use the calendar date ranges to build the schedule. So you can build separate PGY specific schedules should you want to. If I go back to the calendar, you'll also see an option here for first day of the week. This is where you're able to change the first day of the week for what's shown on the clinical hour submission page. So when we go to our menu option for clinical hours and we look at submit review clinical hours, the date of the week that's displayed as the first day of the week as your default, that's how you configure that. And that's why that option is listed there. In the new module, you have all the same functionalities. What's the first day of the week, the number of blocks, and if we want to set up our custom blocks, then we can change the number of blocks as well. So the next option we want to look at will be our site affiliation agreement option. Here we're able to add our site affiliations directly into the system. The idea of adding our site affiliations is only when we have affiliation agreements. If you do not have affiliation agreements, you don't have residents, excuse me, that are rotating at alternative sites, then you don't need to worry about setting up these affiliation agreements in sites. So this is why it's not part of the initial setup. Notice the heading on this page is as needed. So if it's not needed, you don't have to go through and do any of that. So for those of you that are planning on doing affiliation agreements, I want to show you on the current system, because here you can come in and you can add those affiliation agreements in the current, in the new module. In the current system, if you want to add affiliation agreements, it's again under the same idea. We go under clinical hours, under settings, we go to manage site names. So if I click on add site and affiliation agreement, this is where you're going to identify the sponsoring name. If that sponsoring name does not exist, you click add sponsoring name. You'll then be able to type in the name of the organization, add that into your database. On the other hand, if the sponsoring name is there, you select it. What's the name of the participating site? If it's not there, you can add it as well. So we'll say Children's Hospital. What's the name of the program? This might be Peds Anesthesiology. What types of trainees are in this affiliation agreement? Residents. Which PGY levels? It applies to PGY 1s and 2s. What's the name of the specific rotation? Both of our anesthesiology rotations can rotate into this program. What type of agreement is it? When is it effective? It was effective from the beginning of this academic year. And the program director is Daryl Adler. The term of this agreement is for 10 years. It automatically populates the end date. I can even change it and say, well, actually it ends on December 31st. I can upload the actual agreement. That is optional. I can write any descriptions here. I can add any note. I click update site, and that will add the site into the system. The nice thing about adding these sites into the system is as you're building your rotation block schedules, you'll be able to associate them with different sites, which makes your fiscal management for Irish reporting much easier, and you don't have to worry about a rotation, having to set up multiple versions of the same rotation. For those of you that are using MION and other third-party scheduling tools, many times you have to take, let's say, anesthesiology and create 2 or 3 iterations. Anesthesiology at UConn, anesthesiology at Copenhagen, anesthesiology at Stanford. You have to create these different rotations. Well, in MySchedule, you don't have to do that because every rotation is directly associated with the site. Again, just to review that with you, when I go to manage rotation names and I'm adding rotation, a rotation in here, each one of these rotations will be associated with individual sites. So after affiliation agreements, the other options are going to be for your shifts. For shifts, you're able to add individual shifts both now and in the new interface. Functionality-wise, adding shifts has the same functionalities as I've been sharing with you so far. So manage shift names. I click on add a shift name. I put in the name of that shift. Because shifts have a particular start and end time, here you will associate them with a particular activity type. So it's a limited list of your duty hour activities. And for those of you unfamiliar with the duty hours module, I recommend that you watch the webinar on the duty hours module. That webinar is available for you under the menu option, My Help. That's where you learn how to manage all the various ACGME activity types. So you would specify that shift, what activity it's associated with, what's the start and end time of the activity, what days of the week it can occur, and that's the basic setup of a shift. And the reason you do this, unlike when we were setting up rotations, you have to go separately set up the activity start date and end date, and start time and end time, in order to set up default activity types for rotations. For shifts, you do not do that. For shifts, you're actually building the activity directly into the shift. So when a resident is scheduled for this particular shift, it will automatically populate their schedule, and it'll also be a default population on their duty hour submission page. So this is different from the new setup, only in the sense that in the new setup, I have it set up in a table. I can see for each individual shift what the start and end times are. And notice here, there's also a column that shows you if that shift is associated with an evaluation as well. And I can click add shifts in order to add a shift. What's the activity type? What days of the week, start time, end time, and move forward from there. After shifts, we look at clinics, clinic configuration. Here we can also add our clinics as well. Clinic configuration, call configuration, they all have the same setup as the shifts. They are absolutely identical in both the current system and what you'll have available next week. So if I select clinics, I add a clinic. The clinic has a clinic name. It's associated with an activity, which days of the week, start and end time. So the setup on all of these will be exactly the same. Absolutely no different. So for all of these, and all of these functionalities are available for you. Again, right now, you can go under your settings and you're able to set up your clinics, calls, shifts directly. You can do that right now without any restriction. So calls would be the next option, and this is where we go ahead and add our calls. So I've actually integrated the hands-on option as we were going through to make you familiar. It's a little bit back and forth that we're doing. So now let's jump right into creating a schedule. My focus is really on creating a simple schedule. I don't want to get into very complicated things with you. I want to make sure that at the end of this webinar, you're able to run and build a simple scheduling for your program. So we're going to go under the menu option, clinical hours, and we're going to select the option for create and manage schedules. Once you select that option, here you're going to type in the name of the schedule for that specific academic year. We're going to select that whatever academic year we're building it for, and we're going to select the users that we want to include. When you click on the select option for selecting users, you will be presented with a drop down like this, which allows you to select users on the left-hand side, click the add button, and then click the save button in order to save those users. Once you click save, it brings you back in here, and you can actually see it shows that you've selected 7 users, and all you need to do is to click save and edit. Once you click save and edit, so all I did is I put in the name of the schedule, and you don't have to give it a unique name for the academic year. If you're just building one schedule, you can call it rotation schedule. Doesn't matter, because all the schedules are specific to each academic year. Select the users, click save and edit, and the next thing you're going to get is a page for you to be able to go through and actually build your schedule. So what you can see here is all your trainees that you've selected, all 7 of them are listed, and you can see for every block it says no rotation. Simply you go and you can actually hover over that area, and when you hover over it, you're going to see a little pencil icon show. And when you click on the pencil icon, it'll actually bring up a screen for you to select the rotation name and select the site for you to build your schedule. So you select the appropriate rotation name. If needed, you select a site. If you haven't set up sites, no big deal. You can leave that alone and just simply click save. That'll bring you back to the screen, and you can see that that particular rotation name that I've selected is now populated here as ambulatory medicine clinic. Now you have an option. You can click either save or you can click save and post. If you click save, it's just a work in progress schedule that's available for you to review and post at a later date. If you click save and post, then that schedule will become immediately available when you click on MySchedule, assuming you've set that up as your default scheduling tool. As soon as people click on MySchedule, you're all set and that schedule is ready to go. Of course, you notice that I have not filled in the rest of the rotations here. I've only filled in the first 2 in this example. So let's now do a quick hands-on on building a schedule. So I'm in the current functionality that's available to you, not what's going to be available next week. I'm showing you what's available to you right now. Under the clinical hours menu, I'm going to go to create and manage schedules. So it's very important that we reflect back that I have already set up my rotations and I have already configured my rotation blocks. Now that I've done that, I want to start to build a schedule. So I click on the option to add a schedule. I'm going to type in the name of my schedule. So we're going to call this the webinar schedule. And we're going to build the schedule for the 24-25 academic year. And in the current module, when you go in, it gives you the option for blocks, shifts, and clinics. Notice that the call option is not there. That call option will be made available to you starting tomorrow. Looking at the current system, looking at the system that will be made available to you starting tomorrow for the calls, that functionality is exactly the same, except here you have block, shift, clinics, and calls. Also notice here that the automatic scheduling module, which I will be discussing in this webinar shortly, will also be enabled later for you. Currently, notice that that option is not listed here. That option is available for you, but it's available for you under a separate setting option that's currently not listed there and not currently available. So in what you have currently available to you is the ability for you to do blocks, shifts, and clinics. So you select the appropriate option, go in and select the users that you want. Again, I'm zoomed in over here. I can select them by PGY level. When I click select, the system will automatically identify those users and select them for me. I click save. It tells me I've selected 66 people. So I have my 66 users there. Now I can click save and edit. So it says schedule generated successfully. Processing, please wait. It's putting all 66 of those individuals on a schedule. And now I have my schedule. As I hover over, you'll notice where there's a pencil. On the pencil, I can click on that pencil. I'll be presented with the rotation names. When I select a particular rotation name, if that rotation name is associated with the site will automatically populate, and I have the option of selecting different sites. So if this anesthesiology rotation will be at County, great. If it will be at Hope, great. If it's at a different site, then I have to go back to set up a site and go from there. Now let's say that this rotation is initially at County, but in this example, for July, the resident is going to spend the first half of the month at County, and they're going to spend the second half of the month at Hope Medical Center. Well, how do I do that? This is defaulted from July 1 till July 31st, which is the rotation block date range that I've set up. I'll click on Add Section. That will automatically split this into 2 blocks. If I click another Add a Section, it will automatically split it into multiple blocks. So it's up to you in terms of what you want. So I'm going to remove that 3rd block from there, and I'm going to focus on just having my 2 blocks in here. So if the first half of the block will be anesthesiology at County, the second one will be anesthesiology at Hope. I click save. Now I have that populated. So notice that that rotation has a little circle down here, which I can click on, and it will show me that the 2 different sites that the resident will be at. So I would go through and build all of my rotations exactly the same way. Cardiology, again, this one is at County for the whole month. Great. Now, what happens in the instance, let's say, that now the resident for the month of September is actually going to be on dermatology, but then they're going to be on dermatology, let's say, only until, not till the 30th of the month, but till the 22nd of the month. So notice in this case, I've only populated a partial component in here. I've done from September 1 till September 22. that's going to be flagged later on as you having a gap in that schedule. Let's say from September 23rd until October 5th, they are on vacation. Well, I'll have to put that vacation in as a split activity. So in this case, I'll add. I'm going to select the option for vacation. I'm going to save that, so that's going to take me to the 30th. Then on the next block, I'm going to also go back and select vacation and say that vacation is going to run all the way till the 6th of October. So again, I've done a partial schedule population there. I can come back and continue this. Now at this stage, I can simply click on update, and that's going to update the schedule. In the new module, we have some enhanced functionality. So let's look at this functionality. So I put in my name, select the academic year, go in and select my users. Now here, we're going to talk about these extra functionalities in just a minute, but I'm going to click on save and edit just like I did in the current functionality that I have available. So some of the new features that we've added in the new module that are currently not listed here for you. In the new module, you just have a cancel and update. In the current module, in the new module, we've provided you with the option to close, save and post. We've also provided you with the option to edit the users in real time. And we've also provided a new interface that will show you if you've created any schedule conflicts. Those will be identified for you in real time. So otherwise, the functionalities for going in and editing our schedules are exactly the same, and that hasn't changed a bit. So let's now do a quick review of some of the newer functionalities that will be available to you starting next week. So these are things that are currently not available to you, but will be available to you starting next week, which is part of the curriculum that we're reviewing for today. So if we're going to create a rule-based schedule, and a rule-based schedule means we're going to create a template of how a schedule should look like, meaning the sequence of the rotations and what they should be, then this is how we would go through it. We go through exactly the same option of giving it a name, selecting academic year, and selecting the users. But then on the right-hand side, we select the option for generate automatically. Selecting that generate automatically will then prompt you to select a template. So it says create schedule template to generate assignments. So you need to do that in order for the system to know how to build the schedule. So when you click on that add template option, the system will actually present you with a page to set up your rules. How do you set up your rules? Well, first you're going to give it the name of the rule. So let's name the template. It can be named whatever you want to call it. This could be PGY1 rules, for example. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to select what type of rule do you want to create. You have the option of creating rules for rotations and sites, or just sites. So in this example, we've selected rotation and site. We'll look at the other options as well. Next thing that you do, you select the number of options you want to create. So when a schedule is being created, should it just have one option and everybody's scheduled the same way? Or should there be multiple options so that the system will randomly assign residents to the different options that are made available? Then you go through and you fill in the details of what each option should look like. So for every block, what that should look like, and you click save. Once you click save, you'll be able to, you're going to come back to the same page that we're on. It'll show the schedule template that you've selected, and you'll click the generate option, and the system will actually build the schedule for you based on that template that you've created. So let's now take a look at that and see what that functionality will actually look like. So I go through, I say generate automatically. When I click generate automatically, it says, well, what's the schedule template that you want to use? I can have different schedule templates in here. If I hover over the menu option, I can go in and click on edit to take a look at what that template looks like. Well, I see that I haven't fully completed this template. I've gone through, I've selected some rotations, but I haven't gone through and set up all the various rotations and sites. And for some rotations, when there's no site, it'll be blank. So I can change that and say, I just want everything to be based on rotations. It's not site specific. So if you do not have rotations that are at other sites, then you can just build it based on rotation. If you have site-specific requirements, then you can select rotation and site, and then go through and select the appropriate site that you want to set up for each individual rotation as needed. The number of options you select will give you more columns that you have to build. That template of what you build is a template that you can use over and over again each academic year. So you spend the time to build a template now, and next year you don't have to build another template. You can use that template and apply it to the residents automatically. So it's just a way to make the process much easier for you. Once we click generate, that will then build the schedule based on that template allocation that I've set up. So in addition to generating schedules automatically, we also have the option to consider user preferences. So imagine that you not only do you create this template, but now why don't we present that template to the residents and let the residents pick their first choice, their second choice, their third choices, or as many choices as you want to give them. They could, if you create 12 templates, they could prioritize their request for which template is their first choice, their second choice, and their third choice up to their 12th choices. So what we have here is, again, the same option. We're going to create a schedule where we name it academic year, select the users. We select the option to generate automatically, and we also select the option for consider user preferences. Now, because we're generating automatically, it says, well, what's the template you want to use? Great. Then it's going to also give me the option to set up my collection period. What's the start date and the end date where residents can submit their preferences? So the residents can, in this case, you're giving them from today, April 4th through April 11th, to submit their preferences. And how many preferences can they give? Well, it depends on how many options you create. If you only create one option, well, there isn't much of a preference they can give you. But if you create 5 options in your template, they'll have up to 5 different options to choose from. You could set that to max, which will let them do all 5 options and sort it in the order that they want. Or you can give them, let's say, their top 2 preferences, so you can change that number here. Once you select those options, notice at the bottom, the button here is not to save and generate like it was before, where we had the generate option, but the option says collect preferences, because the schedule won't be built until after April 11th. On April 11th, the system will then after April 11th, so essentially midnight after April 11th, the system will then create the schedule based on a lottery system strictly based on the preferences that the residents have submitted. So once you click on Collect Preferences, you are then taken back to the page where is a listing of all your various schedules. So when I'm talking about a listing of all your various schedules, let's take a look at that so you're clear. If I go back under clinical hours and I go under create and manage schedules, here I have a list of all my existing schedules. So when you're looking at the list of those existing schedules, you'll notice here that first of all it says this is a user preferences mode. So this is not ready to go yet. And notice I have an option at the bottom to edit. And if I hover over that menu item, it lets me look up individual user preferences. I can also say, you know what? It's April 9th. I've looked at all the user preferences and we want to stop collecting preferences and I want to generate the schedule now. It tells you here at the top that there's 7 days left. So it's up to you. You want to stop collecting preferences and you want to generate the schedule now. You can also decide to deactivate this essentially to get rid of it. So it gives you that ability. You can also rename this. I've named it Making a Schedule. I can rename it to something else. And of course I can deactivate it to get rid of it as well. So let's look at that hands-on process. This is in the new functionality that will be available to you next week. Create and manage schedules. We click on add a schedule. Give it a name. Select the academic year. Select my users. Generate automatically. And I want to consider user preferences. So I can say I want to give them from April 4th to April 8th. And how many preferences? Well, based on that template, it tells me there are only 2 options. So if I set it to max, that means they can have up to 2 options. If I go into this template and I edit it and I add a 3rd option, and I understand that we're looking at an option that is blank right now, but by simply adding a 3rd option in here, it will have a dynamic effect on what's available there. So the number of options listed here is reflected based on what you have on the template. So once you click on Collect Preferences, now create a schedule. Now it says schedule generated successfully, and you have a listing of your schedules. Be mindful that we're looking at 24-25, so you want to change your academic year here. And we just created the Create a Schedule Now. And this is in user preferences mode. So when I click on edit, it's just showing me that the schedule doesn't have anything on it right now. And I can come in here, I can click on user preferences, and that's going to show me, I can actually run through each one of my 4 users to see what their preferences are once I've set up, once they have selected their preferences. So that's what that option here for me to user preference, or I can stop collecting my preferences, and it gives me the option, well, you want to stop, do you want to generate the schedule now because nobody has submitted any preferences, or do you want to delete all their preferences that have been collected and start the collection process all over again? So those are options for stopping that data collection process and moving forward. Notice this is very different than that schedule we created a few minutes ago. In that case, because there are no user preferences, the mode is in, I created a manual schedule. It shows the users on there. When I'm ready, I can click on post. The post is actually going to publish the schedule so that when residents click on My Schedule, it will automatically display their schedule. Now, while I'm here talking about automatically displaying schedules, I want to bring both of those up to make a very, very quick compare and contrast for you between what you're seeing now and what you're going to start to see from next week. This is the current view of the schedule. This is 150% zoomed in. And let's go here, and we'll also zoom here to 150%. So some of the changes that we've made here, when you click on My Schedule in the new format starting next week, here I can now directly go in and edit the name of the schedule. I can add users to it. I'll see conflicts. I can look up specific training levels. I can look up specific users. And then I have a more prominent bar here to be able to shuffle over to the right and over to the left. And this is also where in the future, we're also going to add day view. You also have the option here for user view, which would then allow you to select individual users and to see what those individual schedules look like for individual user view, in contrast to maybe looking at a shift view if they have shift cycles. So we're making some changes to how all this information is being displayed to you. So the last component of your schedule building process that will be available for you next week will be another option for setting service requirements. This is, again, a very advanced option where you can actually set up the number of trainees that are required for each rotation. We do the same process of putting in the name of the schedule, the academic year, and the users. We select the option for generate automatically. In this case, we also select the consider user allocation. So notice I did not select the option for consider user preferences. You can do that. I'm just, in this example, keeping it relatively simple. It's automatic scheduling, and it's going to consider user allocation. In that case, I'm being presented with a user allocation template that I have to create and manage as well. I click on generate, and that's going to generate a schedule for me based on my user allocation template. So let's go into that process and take a quick look at that. So we create another schedule for next academic year, select our users, click Save, generate automatically, consider user preferences. Notice in this case that both templates have the same name. That's absolutely fine. They're different functionalities. So I can go through here and add my own new template. So this could be called my trainee allocation template. And so here, as I mentioned, your campus will always be your one campus. That allocation template is for which site? We can say, well, for the Hope Medical Center. And then the various rotations that are available for each one of those various sites that you pick are going to be displayed for you. And then for each one of those rotations, you're able to set up the specific allocation. So for example, for block 1, for every block, we always have to have one intern on the service. And you would select that. If you then say we have to have 2 PGY2s, for example, every block, but in block 3, we actually need to have 3 2s and we have to have 2 1s, because typically in August it's a busier month on that service. So you're creating these allocation templates. The system is actually going to use those allocations when creating a schedule to make certain that the right number of PGY levels are being assigned. And if those trainees are not available to be assigned, then they're going to be flagged for you as gaps on the schedule where you have to figure, well, you said you wanted to have 3 PGY2s, but there aren't enough PGY2s for me to assign to anesthesiology and assign to other services at the same time. So both of these options that I've shared with you for generating schedules automatically, considering user preferences, and considering user allocation, all of these 3 automated scheduling options will be available to you starting next week. Additionally, the option for creating call schedules will be available to you from next week as well. So if you're watching this webinar after in a recorded format, those functionalities are already available to you, assuming you're watching this after the 8th of April. So let's open up opportunities here for any questions, please. Valuations.com. Jay's also on this call and he's available, jay@myvaluations.com. Take care. Thank you.